All right, I think we're live. We're back for another .NET Community Standup. I just surprised my amazing guests today. So they're like, everyone's just waiting, and like, we don't know when it's going to start. Is it going to start? They're like looking on Twitch, but obviously they have to wait for me. Well, we're back for another .NET Community Standup featuring all of the amazing stuff happening in the world of mobile.NET for all the fans using Xamarin out there and .NET on their desktop and mobile platforms. So I'm James Montemagno. I'm a program manager here at Microsoft, doing all things in the mobile dev space. And I have two amazing guests over here today. I'll let them introduce themselves. How about we start with you, David?
Hey, David Ortnow, Senior Program Manager, Mobile Dev Tools, mobile SDKs primarily, so anything iOS, Android components, and absolutely Xamarin.Forms. You can come to me. I would love to hear what you're working on, what you're doing, so that we can make the product better. And today we have a special guest, Shane, who works with us on the Forms team. Shane?
Hello. So yeah, I'm Shane Newville on the Xamarin.Forms team. Recently did all the work with the visual implementations and bringing material to Forms. So yeah, excited to show everyone what you can do with visual, and then how we took that and created some material design that you can bring to your iOS applications and your Google application and your Android applications.
Good teaser. Good teaser.
Yeah. So people don't know what the .NET Community Standup is. So what we do is every single Tuesday is an ASP.NET Community Standup, and then on Thursdays at 9 o'clock here on Twitch and on YouTube, we cycle through all the different .NET workloads. So first Thursday of every month is a mobile. We have languages and runtime. We have tooling, and we have cloud. We cycle through all of them. So this is our time to interact with the community. And what we do is we go through all the great community contributions on GitHub, developers blogging, really cool things that the team are working on, and then we like to show off some things. So we like to have a special guest. Last month, we had Jonathan Peppers on from the Android team talking about all of our amazing build time improvements that they're doing. And then also now we have Shane on talking about visual, which I'm super excited for. It's probably one of my favorite features, and how they set it up to pick and choose is really great. So I will say this. We're monitoring the chat rooms on both Twitch and YouTube. So this is live. Of course, you can, watch this later on YouTube on .NET Foundation. But what's great is that you can interact with us. So I know Andrew Hoffling already is asking if this is a new Xamagon sticker. That's right, baby. The stickers are back. I've been tweeting out all my Xamarin stickers and prototypes and magnets and pins that I've been doing. Rolling out to user groups in the community everywhere, which I'm very, very excited for. And yeah, so we're here. We got Lashlan Gordon in the chat room. David's in that chat room, which is great. And I have it up for both YouTube and Twitch. So feel free to ask your questions as we're going along. But yeah, I'm super excited. Thanks for both of you for joining me.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to have fun. I think, visual is deceptively powerful. And so I'm excited that we're going to be able to go a little deeper into it today. And we've got some blogs coming too. So yay!
Yeah, I think the first blog on blog.xamarin.com went out yesterday, kind of introducing, we launched Xamarin.Forms 3.6, right? You want to talk about that real quick before we get into the post, David?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, we ship Xamarin.Forms approximately every 6 weeks. And so the whole 3.0 series started at Build last year. And the theme has been solving those little things that frustrate you on a day-to-day basis. So, why can't I control rounded corners on particular things, background colors? I want my labels to be more useful with spans and bindings, and just a whole slew of things. We had a whole list of like 100 of them. And we call it the F100s because it's the Forms 100 little paper cuts that we can solve for you. So yesterday marks 3.6, as you mentioned. And probably the notable things in here, the visual, as we keep talking about, has removed the experimental flag. So this is the first version of it. There's a lot more that we can do with it and that we hope to do with it. But what we really needed to hear is from our community, from those who are using it for business needs. Is it meeting your needs? Where should we evolve it? Where should we go with it? Initially we had the conversation, should we go really deep on one control? Just take button and blow button away, just go real deep on it so that you can customize customize the whole thing? Or would it be more useful to take a variety of controls that the material for iOS components from Google provides to us and ship, basically, I think we're close to a dozen controls.
Yeah.
Clearly, we chose the latter.
Now, how about my checkbox? Is that in? Is that in yet? Shane, what's the status? Shane, what's the status? Come on now.
It's good. We had to get 367, and that's a focus. So.
Oh, good answer, man. Good answer.
I see how it is.
I trained these guys.
All right, well, let's get into it. I'm going to go pop over here so everyone, they can still see us, they can see you. We're going to go through some community links. We've got lots of goodies in here. I'm going to go ahead and post the one tab so you can follow along at home in both Twitch and on YouTube as well, which is really cool. So the first thing is developers always ask us all the time, like, hey, who is building applications with Xamarin and .NET for their mobile applications? And when we made the transition from Xamarin.com into like the .NET properties and Visual Studio properties, different pages kind of went and came and redirected. So I've been working really hard with my focus on community to build some new pages with the .NET team. And we're the very first ones, besides all of .NET, so the framework itself, to have a Xamarin customer showcase. Yeah. So this here, when you go to .NET, which is cool. I figured I'd start with some things that I've been working on. When you go to .NET, you can tap on mobile, and under Xamarin, you'll go right to this customer showcase, which is really cool. And you can browse through each of the different companies, including here, us at Microsoft, using Xamarin to build apps, all different industries, all different cool things, a lot of teams that I've worked with inherently here at Microsoft and around the globe. And what's really cool more than anything is that you can learn about like what technologies they're using, if they're using App Center or Azure or SQL Server. And then here, for instance, for Seeing AI, you can just download their app. Or you can go to learn more on any of these and go to a case study. But what I like is at the bottom here, you can go to this More Customer Stories, which will bring you into the official customer portal here at Microsoft for all Xamarin. And then also there's this community showcase where you can submit your own app that you've been building with, which is built with .NET. And I'm working with the owner of this, and he's approving more and more every single day as they go through. So you can go through, submit your app, submit your library, submit your project, whether it's with Xamarin or other .NET things. Here's our conference app, for instance, and get it up there. So if you're building apps, I think it's super cool.
Hey, James, so a question that I saw when we started announcing this stuff on Twitter is, hey, how can I get my company's app in this showcase?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I work with Christos, who's with our marketing department here. And these case studies have like an official process that take like forever to go through. But you can ping me if you want, and I can get you in contact with Christos. Hit me up, motz@microsoft.com. That is my email address. It goes right into my inbox. And there's different processes. So like there's like case study, where it's like we do a whole case study and like get permission to use quotes and use logos. You get legal, whole thing. And then there's another way, which is like a smaller form where you kind of give us access to talk about certain aspects of it. So I think we can expand it and do more. But the nice thing is that anyone can submit to the community showcase. So you can just put it up really quick.
Yep. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. The other stuff I wanted to talk about really quick are some new series I'm doing on Channel 9, which were requested by the community. One is Xamarin.Forms 101. So you need a little 101 for your Xamarin.Forms. Not everyone can jump right to visual, you guys. So I've been trying to break down like introductory topics of Xamarin.Forms. I know, David, I think you're going to maybe start some of these too.
Yeah, I would love to go into, in particular, design and layout things. I think it's really useful to explore how to do different things like parallax scrolling and things like that. And when you see the techniques that different people use, like Javier Suarez Ruiz, who works on the Mac team, has a whole repository of really cool looking samples. And it's cool to be able to go in there and just pick it apart and be like, how did he do that? So if that's of interest to people, please let me know, and that would be some encouragement to get me going on that. But
yeah, I think so. I want to have a bunch of different people and people from the forums team come on. Just 5 to 10 minute videos, like here's how you do one thing really quick. And I've done it not only with that, but also Xamarin Essentials. Every single week I've been releasing Essential API of the Week. They're little 5 to 10 minute videos. I try to keep them around 5 minutes. you can come in, learn about maps, secure storage, share. Every Tuesday, those come out too. So give that a look-sees too. But let's hop into some community stuff, because our main man Gerald, every single stand-up, can't not. He did a blog post, but also this is a pull request, I believe, to Xamarin.Forms, which is selected and unselected tab colors. Now, if people have been following my series on my blog, all I do is talk about tabs. Like every other blog post is about tabs, because who doesn't want tabs or bottom tabs? So many tabs. And I've talked about so much customization, but he ends up talking about how to implement the setting background colors and text colors easily in the pull request that he did. So he talks about the tabbed page and how to modify back and forth and set the colors on it. So little tweaks like this. But this is something, is this in the product yet, David, or is this, there's a pull request for Xamarin.Forms 4.0, is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's still coming. Shane, do you know off the top of your head? All right.
It's merged.
I do not know.
It's merged
Yeah, it's
officially.
merged. If you go look and see which branch it's merged into, then we would know.
4.0.
There you go.
Yeah, so it should be in the next pre that's going to be tagged and coming out.
Yeah, very soon.
So that's right. So we have pre-releases of 4.0, right? So how does that work? Like if Gerald here, he did a pull request, right? Now it's in. Can people just go test that? Is there releases, or how does that work?
So we have a couple of release vehicles. We have the nightly release, but that's off of the master branch. So I think is every Monday we merge back into master. Is that right, Shane? It gets refreshed.
Yeah, typically it's every Monday, and then if we'll do it more often if there's some reason we need to merge up, obviously. But Monday is the typical schedule.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's when you'll start seeing it in the nightlies.
Right. So and if it doesn't hit the nightlies right away, it will absolutely be in the next pre-release. Given our schedule, I don't think we really publish actual dates for a lot of these things for various reasons. Mostly things happen, and we don't want everybody to get super disappointed. But yeah, so we usually have at least 3 or 4 pre-releases per release. These 6-week cycles have been going much faster, so we have less need for pre-releases, which I think also helps improve the stability of the entire product. And then, so the next major release, we just talked about 3.6 going out yesterday. The next major release will be 4.0. And you can look for that to be coming in approximately 6 weeks.
Nice. Ooh, there you go. Look at that pre-release. There's leaking numbers, leaking dates. I love that.
Come on.
This is cool because I love one thing that I had a call to action on too was when I started to do my pull request for like the checkbox and we started doing the community stand-ups. This is the stuff I love, right? I love that what we're seeing is people doing pull requests, blogging about their experience doing the pull request and the features, and how you can just grab the code and start doing it today. I love seeing that stuff, which is great. So Janiski, who's on every stream, he says, so many releases, puts out some of my emotes. Thanks for being a subscriber on my channel, which is great. I love it. Now, some other cool things, non-forms related, but could be forms related because you can do anything in forms. A few awesome posts on ARKit. Just out of nowhere, it seemed to be AR month. That I saw coming from the community. So our good friend Michael Ridlin did this really cool introductory to ARKit, the basics of like what is ARKit, how does it work, understanding kind of the world of ARKit that you can use and how you would want to use it to triangulate sort of augmented reality on top of it, which I thought was really, really cool. Just the actual high-level understanding, and here we have everyone's favorite like dancing monster. But to me, sometimes it's like you have the API, but actually understanding some of these complex math things behind the scenes are really, really, really interesting to sort of take a stand back on and understand all the things that you can do. And then I also noticed that Ryan Davis, friend of the show, did a great meetup over in Sydney where he talked about ARKit. And he did this demo using Earthbound theme demo. And he had a little video here, which I thought was really cool, where he does this image tracking. I love this little Earthbound type 2D bit. So he takes a card and he transposes on Earthbound characters from the game right on top of it, and can get the different dimensions of it. And he can transpose. It's kind of like when I had my Nintendo 3DS and I would have the AR cards, create your own AR card game, which I thought was super duper cool. I have a demo somewhere too. I have it, I need to find it. I did a AR card, like I took the AR cards from my Nintendo 3DS and I created an iPad app where you could like bring those characters into the real world. It was some hack that Joseph made me do, my boss, and I was like, but he has his whole slides here, which I thought was great. You know, in the slides, you can grab the slides, download it in general, which is super duper cool. So give that a look if you're into AR or presenting on AR. I love community kind of sharing slide decks, and next month I'll have a lot more to show on that. So.
Hey, James, regarding ARKit, I put this in the Twitch channel. There's a customer, Graham and Brown in the UK, that has been speaking at user groups, and we've spoken to them directly. They make a really great use of ARKit to do wallpaper and paint. So in your home, you can basically set up the wall that you're going to decorate, do the ARKit bit with that, and yeah, it's really cool. As a matter of fact, I did a 8th grade career fair with kids the other day, showing them what we do at Microsoft, and I showed off both Seeing AI and this app, and they were blown away. So
that's cool. Yeah, that one's actually in builtwith.net. I found that one on there. Need to work with them to get that in the showcase. That's super awesome.
Was that your next tab?
No. I just went over. I went over to .net. I remember seeing it there.
Oh, good.
Right here.
I was like, man, did I just steal that?
No. You're good. You're good. Now I forget where I'm at now. Okay, here we go. There we go. There. Next thing I had is Mark did this. I've talked about splash screens a lot on my blog and in the real world about startup perception of applications. And Google has great documentation on startup for their applications and what yours can be. So he was talking about like, hey, you know, when you start a new app, it looks like this. I mean, any app, right? Especially a Xamarin.Forms app, maybe it takes like a second or so to boot up. Especially if you're in debug mode, things take longer, you know, you're doing some stuff. But iOS always has it. They force you to do that splash screen, you know. So he said, hey, what if we, you know, create a custom activity or modify the activity? We're going to put a bitmap splash screen on it, and then we'll get something like this. Put a little Xamagon on there, right? Boom. But better yet, he says, let's create an animation with the built-in, you know, Xamarin.Forms animations that are. I think people forget about the animations built into Xamarin.Forms. So what he did is he said on appearing. Let me zoom in here a little bit on this puppy. But right here he says, you know what? Here's my image, and when you start up on appearing, which you're only ever going to see once, scale out down to 50%, and then scale back up to 100%, and then fade out or fade to like up and to, and then you get this really cool sort of animation across platforms. So you scale up and you explode out, kind of like Twitter does in their application, which I thought was so cool. Cross-platform too. Yep. So even though you may do that initial splash screen on Android, now you're getting this across each platform. So I thought that was a really cool one, just in general. And you can find the demo right on GitHub.
The templates shipping in VS 2019 for Android for Forms do implement the new material splash screen as part of the templates. So you get that for free now.
Andrew says, you're right, it's commonly overlooked feature built into the platform for animations. We probably need some animation blogs. Call to action, community. Write some blogs on your favorite animations. I forget, you know, I did on the conference app, I did that. I like that Twitter and Instagram, like when you hearted something, it would do a little thing. So I had a custom button, and now it's an image button, really, which I love is the best. When you tap on it, it would just go up, up. It would like zoom in, zoom out really quick. That's all it was. It was like, that's it. So awesome.
The easy things. Yep.
It's the small things. It's the little things.
The little things.
Leomaris Reyes, she has started this website, Ask Xammy, which has been popping up time and time again. She is awesome. She's been blogging on Xamarin now for quite a while, and I thought this wasn't necessarily Xamarin like code related, but it's building the community and building up sort of your brand and talking about how to even get into blogging. So she wrote this great thing about just her personal advice of picking a topic, defining your niche, finding a place where to blog, like your name of your blog, the color scheme of your blog, the template that she used to get started. So I thought it was a really nice little blog post. I always forget about it. I know Shane and the Forms team, a lot of people have been asking me, like, how do you start Twitch streaming? How do you start doing stuff, you know? And I was like, well, it's easy, right? Just go do this thing. And I said, just start a blog, right? That'll be easy. And where do you put the blog? Where does the blog go? And how do you start streaming? What's a stream deck? How do you make sure people don't find your address, when you stream, for instance, So I thought this was a cool one to talk about. This is your portfolio. You can use it as a tool. You get featured on the .NET Community Standup. How rad is that? Like, hopefully she does a blog post about, update it. Like, look at that, right? Stuff like that is cool. All right, let me go through a bunch of these other ones here. This one from Claudio, friend of the show, Claudio. Everyone's a friend of the show, by the way. Really interesting little read here on his Medium about implementing feature flags. And I know we do this often, even in Xamarin itself. The visual is kind of a feature flag. Is that how you guys thought about in general?
Initially, I mean, we did use our own feature flagging API to surface it for people that wanted to opt into it.
What is that? Shane, can you talk about how that feature flag worked in general, like the visual, like under the hood? Is it magic or like?
No, I mean, it's not. It's more just a way to express that we haven't settled on like an API, so to speak, because we try to keep the APIs consistent once we've released. So it's sort of just informing people not to build, say, critical pieces on it yet. Things that are going to maybe cause issues because of like ABI changes and whatnot. So, I mean, essentially, it's just a string and an array that we check when those features are activated within the code. So anywhere where visual was being tapped into, like the material renderers or in sort of the render register areas, it would just check to see if that flag was there. And if it wasn't, it would tell you, hey, if you want this feature, enable the experimental flag. So it's just kind of trying to give people a conscious, so that people have sort of the conscious, they're aware that they're opting into something experimental that'll change.
Gotcha.
Opposed to, us just changing it randomly and surprising them.
Gotcha. That's nice. Yeah, and it kind of adds on to what Claudio was saying, like how you can start to iterate faster, right? To turn on things, turn off things. If it doesn't work out, turn it off, iterate, create the next version of it. So he was talking here about like how you can roll out new features, put them under feature flags. And because we have been shipping, for how long have we been shipping some of those features under feature flag, like visual? Like how long did that ship for?
Since Connect, we first debuted all the future things at Connect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's nice being able to have those type of features in the NuGets that just come out, because we can start getting the feedback quicker. So we've especially been seeing that with like collection view and shell, people tapping into it, and then we start getting a lot more community churn that way, which we always really, really, really like. Yeah, so things always come out a lot better when we have people infiltrating our bubbles. So
yeah, if we ship things as separate NuGets, they tend to not get as much traction, and then there could be concern that, hey, it's a separate NuGet. I wonder if that thing will live or if it's going to die.
No,
but if it's in the main package, then you have a greater level of confidence that they're committed to seeing this thing through.
Yeah, I like that. I didn't even think of it that way. Is like, for me, I was like, if I need to try this latest 4.0 feature, I need to go install the NuGet. But I could have just tried it in 3.5. There's going to be new features, but I could at least give it a try and give feedback early on, which is super cool. All right, I got a few more here. Over here, Steven did this awesome Pancake view, which was super duper cool, which enables you to do all these borders and shadows and kind of like the amped up card views in a way, but rounded corners. I thought it was cool. I don't know what it has to do with pancakes necessarily, but I love pancakes. I had one for breakfast this morning.
I think is it composition? Is that where he's coming at it from? Because I didn't actually, is there a code sample
of
what the XAML looks like? Yeah, so I mean, kind of that Flutter-esque wrap everything in a different control.
Let me look here, Pancake view platforms. There's probably a sample here. I need to go in it and see what he's up to. But I thought it was a super cool project when he tweeted it out. I was like, I like that. And there's like corner radius and thickness and border radius. He does need a code sample. Put those code samples on here. That way we can show it off. But I will say this. If anyone lives next to a Trader Joe's, Trader Joe's is now selling pancake bread. This is a brand new feature. I think it's out in stores. I'm not positive yet. Just like banana bread, which is great for all your monkeys that are hanging around. They need banana bread. But if you're like me and I love waffles. I mean, waffle bread, I could be really into that. But pancake bread, it's the thing. It's happening. I'm buying it this weekend. Also, Stephen also does these really great. Sorry, Stephen, yeah, Stephen, there he is. He does these great blog posts on really beautiful applications with Xamarin. And this one's called an encyclopedia page with Xamarin.Forms. There's really beautiful sort of layout, and then how he would bring that there. David's always challenging people to really bring beautiful things. So he walks through like handling swipes and scroll views, and how he was handling some of the animations and segues that he would do. So look at that, he adds a little pop in there, and it's like a really, really stunning user interface that you can kind of start to create in your applications, use it as a sample. So he kind of talks about all the tools, Lottie, Xamarin Essentials, using live XAML in there, FF image loading, and all the source code is over on his GitHub page, along with all of his other kick butt UI, if you will, things and his Pancake view. All right, before I hand it over to David, we started doing some design reviews. Are you guys going to start streaming those? What's going to happen with those? I know the .NET team does those. So you want to talk about that?
Right. So I think we're looking for a little bit of your help with this, but yeah. So Paul DiPietro on the Xamarin.Forms PM side is coordinating doing some of these design reviews as well as some other streaming. So we talked about what it takes to get started contributing, how to make your first PR, things like that we think would be useful. But yeah, for design reviews, it's something that when I joined 2 years ago, we had a conversation about, and I went to the team and said, hey, what would you think about doing this? Because when a community member or a contributor submits a spec for something and we do a spec review, we have those meetings and we talk about things, and unless the comments make it back onto the spec, the person who drafted it is not participating, and that doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
So I think for specs where we want to go do some design with it, it makes perfect sense to invite not only the person who authored it, but anybody who's interested in seeing that feature become a real thing. Get everybody involved. And so the live streaming with the setup and the infrastructure and everything that we have now, that you've been a big part of helping make happen, it seems to make sense. And then we're getting crazy enough, and Shane's here, so I'll mention this. He's like, hey, what if we live stream some triage? You know, when bugs get brought in, we'll pick a few and we'll talk through how we go through triage in these things. I think it's a great opportunity for education in terms of what Forms does, as well as you kind of just see how we think about things. You're more than welcome to comment and tell us how you think we ought to improve.
Yeah, in real time. I know it's about transparency and everything's open source, so it ends up happening anyways, right? I think that Shane and I went back and forth for like 4 months on the checkbox, and like here and there, but like we could have just probably got on a call or like did a code review live or something like that, which probably would have been pretty beneficial just to learn, like to see like what he was thinking about it. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool because Emo and the .NET team, they do .NET code or like spec reviews basically.
Yeah.
On YouTube here on the .NET Foundation. So I'll work with them and we're going to figure out that, and then of course follow us on Twitter and we'll let you know when we start doing those. That'd be fun. Some other stuff happening. I thought this was a cool one. David's always finding really cool tweets when you use @XamarinHQ or #Xamarin. I monitor those daily. There's a really cool Reddit about building a standalone Alexa for the Galaxy Watch, which runs Tizen, powered by Xamarin, which is really cool. .NET Core and Xamarin.Forms on top of that, which is really nice. You can read the Reddit post there. And then actually in the chat, Andre. No, different Andre. There's lots of Andres, different Andre in the chat. Yeah. But Andre, I'm going to not be able to say his last name. But Andre, he had been working on this extension for Visual Studio and Visual Studio for Mac for some hot reloading features of Xamarin.Forms, which was cool. So he just published it into the extension manager for Visual Studio for Mac, which allows you to do some sort of real time. You connect it to your simulator and see things update in real time, like on your specific pages. So I'll make sure that everyone has the links over here in the show notes. You can give that a try, give some feedback there. It's a nice open source project, which is cool. It's a little NuGet that you add, and then you can start add the extension, which is cool. I haven't played around with it though myself, but
yeah, I mean, there's several of those out there, and people are kind of rolling their own. So what I loved about this was the collaboration between these two developers, and so I think if we more people who are interested and have different ideas of ways in which to approach this particular problem, wanting to get together, could be some great collaborations.
Yeah, I think everyone tries to tackle it a little bit different because they're solving their problem.
Sure.
It's a little bit hard based on what you're doing, which is cool. All right, last two here, Andoni, and Donnie, that's what I'm going to go with. I'm terrible with a name like Montemagno. He was working on this. I love when people tweet out the stuff they're working with, especially here in Skia was working on this 2D canvas drawing app, and he kind of did a before and after. I love before and after. This is about 50 lines of code to do this drawing app, and then here's the finished product of moving it around on the screen, resizing. Super duper cool. I love stuff.
I think
like
that was Miguel's fault. Miguel challenged him to do that.
Oh yeah. Does it have? Classic Miguel jumping out. So does it have enter leave events for individual events? Not yet. And then literally the same day. Of course it does. Here you go. Look at all the events.
Yeah. That's some inspiration right there. When the boss says, "Hey, what about?
Hey, what about this? What about this?" So cool. All right, now you want to head over and do a little pull request rundown?
Sure. Let me share a browser.
Yeah, we always like to not only go through great community blog posts, but also go through all of the stuff that is happening in pull request world. And your resolution is absolutely tiny.
Is it tiny?
Yeah. You're in like a 640 by 480.
Oh, you want me to make it? What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do?
1080p, baby. 1080p all day.
Let's see. See if I change my screen resolution.
Oh gosh, we didn't test David's.
This is what I did last time. I didn't change anything from last time.
Oh, in a whole month he didn't change anything.
I don't know. I'm looking on the Twitch stream. It's pretty legible.
All right, well, pump up the fonts a little bit. So Baghale says, does Skia make apps heavy? I guess you'd have to define heavy. I mean, it's a bigger workload, right? But I mean, it's still really proficient and performant.
Yeah, I talked to Matt about this recently, actually, Matt Leibowitz, who is our primary maintainer on the Skia bindings library and knows it quite well. And we talked about it, and you can optimize it. It's going to add approximately 4 meg, depending on platforms and ABIs. If you split up your ABIs for Android and really spread it out so that you have smaller APK packages, et cetera, you can get basically 4 is kind of your best case scenario, and it just goes up from there. So, there are potentially things that we could consider doing to optimize that library to get it smaller. We're very conscious, especially on Android, of anything that inflates the APK size, both for performance reasons, but also just, we're always bumping up against that limit, man. The support libraries and everything else that you kind of almost have to have in there. I'm interested to see what Android X ends up doing for us there. I'm not exactly holding out hope that it's going to, reduce sizes and things like that, but
that'd be a fun migration.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's go over to your computer. I got it up here. What do you got first for us?
Cool. So first, I wanted to call out the visual challenge. So what the visual challenge is, a visual is part of 3.6 that came out yesterday. So several weeks ago, I put out the challenge, and it still exists because we still want to learn more. Essentially, what I'm asking people to do is take the latest build of Xamarin.Forms and take an existing screen where you think, if I had this, could this have made my life easier? And then just rebuild it real quick. But just spend an hour on it. Don't spend more than an hour. Don't try to polish it and have something production ready, because you'll learn enough and you'll have enough notes to give back to us within that hour, or maybe even half an hour, that's super useful for us. So that's what the challenge is. And then we've got several PRs. So what I'm asking you to do then is PR your progress. So quite a few here. I'll recognize some names. Lachlan is in here. He woke up at 4 a.m. in Australia to watch us.
Beautiful.
If he's are you still awake, Lachlan? I'm looking at the chat.
Was in there.
Still awake? So several here, I went in and did my own as well. I took some old projects that I had done back in the day, and I'm like, okay, is visual helping me here? And you can see that I put fail. And
fail.
That may sound horrible, right? But as I have come to learn, this is a good guiding thing. When something fails or something doesn't quite hit the mark, then I know where to go. or at least I know an option of where we can improve things. So that's what the visual challenge is all about. I encourage people to participate. It's not challenging your skills, although you are more than welcome to show off your stuff. It's more a challenge of testing out visual and finding the rough edges, finding where it lacks, finding where it's a problem. And some of the feedback we've seen so far is like, hey, a little difficult to adjust the height of entries. I need more styling properties across the board. And there are a lot of styling properties that Material provides. And I don't want to talk too much about it because I think Shane's going to touch on a lot of this. But we have some plans for the future to improve that. And we have a blog post coming out today that will also give you a deep dive into visual. So make sure you check that out.
Now, question for you here real quick. So, yes, Spadicoli in the chat says, you learn more from your failures than success. And I believe so. That's why I love live streaming, because you get to see all my failures. Now, does anyone win anything from this visual challenge?
So I don't have prizes committed, but you do have a bunch of swag.
Yep.
And I know everybody would love to have any piece of that.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So here's what I'm gonna do. Exclusive.
Turn that back around.
Every single pull request. It's got to be legitimate, right? So legitimate challenge entry. Every single person, I'm gonna send you a swag bag in the mail.
Yeah.
So in that swag bag, it's going to be some monkeys. There's going to be a monkey in there. There's going to be brand new exclusive stickers and pins you can't get anywhere else just yet. I mean, eventually it's going to be kind of rolled out. But if there's an official entry, you've gone through the work, done the things, we'll reach out to you once it all ends, and we'll send you some brand new stickers and pins, and I'll send you a monkey in the mail. We'll get that done.
Awesome. That's great.
Every single person. So we'll tweet that out. Make sure we'll just do a blog post on it. And let's spend some of my boss's money to ship stuff out. So cool.
Yeah, that makes for a really good activity for community meetups too. We had a meetup down in Houston. They basically just did a community meetup with like 15 people or so, and just kind of banged out some work on visual challenge work, which was useful. So yeah, make a party out of it. Order some pizza, get some friends together.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, what I'm showing right here is what Lachlan put together. He does quite a bit of work with geolocation and maps and things like that. So he took a simple thing and put this together in a little bit of time. So, it doesn't have to be a fully baked deal, I mean, we can learn a lot from this, and then just make sure you include your notes on what went well, what didn't go well, et cetera, so we can talk to you about it.
So we got lots of great comments. Clifford's in here. Around the world, I will ship swag to anywhere around the world. Here at Microsoft, we have some great shipping services. So anywhere in the world, I will send it to you. It will happen till the end of the month. Let's give it till the end of March, okay? Get your entries in by the end of March, because we're going to go and we're going to show all of these on the April one. So go through. Now that it's in 3.6, it's out there, and then we get a hands-on, so you'll get to see visual in action. But let's continue on. We'll do a blog post next week. We'll get it done.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, and we've already got some improvements coming to visual based on this feedback. So
Nice.
If we can get some pre-releases out with those fixes, we'll also update that.
Boom.
All right. I just want to hit a couple more because I want to give it over to Shane. So first of all, I'll just call out that we do have the one tab, which James will share or has shared.
Yep.
And I'm pointing at my other screen down here as if anybody knows what I'm pointing at. So I'm not going to cover everything, but my thinking was February was so chock full of amazing things, contributions as well as blog posts. Luis put together that, what was it called? Xamarin Love February something?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something. I totally botched that. But it generated so much great content. So a lot of links in here. I'm not going to have time to go over more than just like maybe one more. So check this out. Yeah. All right. So let's see. Where was I? Here. So this was, pull requests aren't just about features. We need polish. We need improvements. We need bug fixes, right? So you see that on Xamarin.Forms right now, there's 1,115 issues, which is indicative of a few things. Certainly, there are a lot of bugs represented in there, things that need to be fixed. There's a lot of specs. There's a lot of enhancements. There's a lot of conversation happening because we're using issues for a variety of things. So that number really is also indicative of activity. We have a very active repository right now, and we love that about it. But we would also love to see the bugs get solved.
Yeah, people, and I read on Twitter often, and I had this problem when I was, even before Xamarin.Forms, is I'd have this bug in like core Android, and they're like, oh, go file it on Radar on iOS or in the Android repo. And I go on the Android repo, and there's like 100,000 open issues, right? But it's like all these things. So like these 1,000 issues, they're issues. They're not necessarily bugs. That's what you're saying, right? I mean, these are
exactly
feature requests, questions, things that pop up. Sometimes they're bugs, and you guys mark all these little tags on there, right?
Yeah, and so if we do a live stream of the triage process, you'll kind of get the inside scoop on how we think about these things and what we're doing with them. But we noticed, actually, we just started using this. Samantha started using the pinned issues at the top here.
That's cool.
to pin some of the specs that we want more eyeballs on, more comments on. And so we probably need to cycle a few more of these up here. I noticed this and I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Where did that come from? And Paul was like, I told you guys about that like 6 months ago. And I was like, we guess we didn't listen to you. Sorry. So there are a lot of things in here. Please do come comment on these specs. You can, of course, come over here to, labels, and then come find all the specs that are out there. Well, that's not it, is it? Is it enhancements? I don't know what it is. You can find it.
We need a readme on what they are.
I know, right? But yeah, please do that. Let me just poke at a couple of other things here.
We got time.
Well, I want to give Shane a lot of time because he's taken time out of his busy day to come be with us.
That's true.
So this is, I noticed these, and I'm going to be completely honest. When it gets into XAML-C and things like that, like I know what XAML-C does. I know what IL is. I've never had to work with it myself. So this is definitely the magic area of building software for me. So when I saw that we had a contributor, Akihiko, from Japan, I believe. Yep. Starting to submit this. There was another one. Was it over here? Nope, that moved on. So there are like 2 or 3 PRs that he submitted for XAML-C. And so I went to Stefan, who's our resident XAML-C expert, and I said, hey, what's the story with this stuff? Are these good pull requests? Because again, it's magic. This is some of the lower level stuff. You don't necessarily expect this to be coming in from community contributors. And he's like, oh yeah, this looks really good. So big shout out here. Thank you for these contributions. That is amazing. All contributions are welcome, whether it's a super easy one, it's a README fix, or it's something like this that goes deep into the heart of the magic areas. Yeah,
like when I even see just like 1 or 2 like line changes, right? Because every change is important.
Absolutely. We do have a radio button here to complement the checkbox.
Andre, you're awesome. Love it.
Andre. I saw that he joined. Yeah, I saw that he joined the thing here. Actually, there was. Oh, I should go to the next one here because this one from the other Andre, who is also the author, just to connect all the dots between that hot reload solution that we were looking at earlier. He has made this proposal about doing Fluent design layout in C#, right? So there are a couple of examples here on what this might look like. If this is something that's interesting to you and you would like to see this move forward, come comment on it. Now, there are several community-supported libraries out there, but we also know and recognize that there's a huge difference within the Microsoft ecosystem, at least, between what people are comfortable with a community contribution or community-supported library and what is got the Microsoft label on it. You put that Microsoft name on something, and it's a whole other level of credibility. So if this is something that you would want and use, if it was part of Xamarin.Forms, come comment and participate on that.
Yeah, they call this in Android. They call it the builder. System. So instead of it like being new button here, it would be like button dot add button, and everything just returns itself. So it just returns the instance of itself that's there. So it's kind of like this, right? You're creating a button, then it's like dot command. So it's kind of like adding on top of it. So the bind here of label, the bind just returns itself. So it can always just add on to it. So I really, I like that quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, ASP.NET Core uses a lot of these concepts too. So
I like them. I've used them in the past. I use them. I use what is it? The Flurl, FLURL, for doing really quick HTTP, and it does some nice JSON parsing for you. Perhaps not. I mean, I don't want to speak out of my knowledge. Well, actually, I'll just shut up. Maybe it's super performant. But anytime you have a package like that does HTTP and JSON work, you have to be a little worried, right? Because if it's doing dynamic stuff, it can really slow things down. But it has a Fluent syntax to it, is what I'm getting at, and I really like it.
Yeah, I like Floral.
Couple others here. We've got letter spacing. And so some of these are folks that are contributing that I have, at least a recent memory, not seen from before. So I love seeing new contributions. So Mr. K. Semenenko, yep, something like that. So if you want to be able to control the letter spacing, so coming from a creative space where I worked with a lot of design agencies and marketing advertising agencies in my earlier part of my career, something like this is very useful. You can really control a lot of this stuff. So
yeah, he or she. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, there he is. I couldn't see his photo. Then yeah, his photo. He's been super active on Xamarin Essentials too.
Oh, great.
Writing stuff on there. So I've seen him pop around. But yeah, first time contributor right up there, which is super rad.
Yeah. Speaking of which, why don't I jump over here? I've got a couple of essentials that you could talk through. Let me see. Or do you want to take over?
No, you're good. Yeah, the first one, we had a few. Actually, they're all from the same individual. So Nicholas, who has been super active, we mentioned before, is 3 pull requests here, actually, which are all being reviewed. So the first one is, it's hovered. You have it hovered over the thing. Is recording audio. So being able to record audio. So if it is recorded async, start recording, which is pretty cool from the microphone. So we're in the process of reviewing that. We're getting ready to ship 1.10, and then we're going to be revving up to do a little bit more and handling files. So a lot of things have to go in files. But the next one here is one that I think this one was an issue that came up, clipboard changes. We introduced a clipboard API in 1.0, and Saskia posted an issue that said, hey, can I get a clipboard changed event? And I said, sure, anyway, ready to implement, go for it. Like, someone will figure it out. And within like a day, Nicholas put in the changed event with event args coming through. You don't know, it's hard to, you just get that it has changed. You don't get what is changed about it because the things could have been added, removed, they could be anything. So you got to kind of check it, but it's there. So it's kind of a nice thing. That one we're definitely going to pull into, I think 1.10 or 1.20 maybe. And then the last one here also was one they did a while back under review. We wanted some feedback on it, which is file system. So understanding how much capacity and bytes are left on your hard disk and the type of storage it is. So if you have an SD card or other ones you can enumerate through, which are super often people are really interested in getting some information. So should I save this big image if I only have 100 megabytes of space left on my machine, or tell my user like, hey, I'm in low usage basically, because you can always already use System IO to enumerate through your folders, but getting a high level of saying like, hey, how much storage is left on disk, and so we wanted some feedback. We're not ready to pull this one in just quite yet, but we wanted to get some more eyeballs on it just to kind of see what people think of file system information. Of what the API would look like there. So that's it. Yeah, bunch of good stuff there.
Awesome. Love it.
Cool.
I know that Essentials is getting tons of love and attention. People are pulling it into all their projects. It is actually in Visual Studio 2019 and the upcoming Visual Studio for Mac 8 baked into our templates. So you get Essentials right out of the box. You don't have to go looking for it because you're going to need it.
Yeah, a lot of good comments in here. So Dwayne was in here. He's talking about, he's all about the XAML. But he does like the Fluent syntax, so that's good. Component development would be pretty nice there. So some good things about images. People want some more things about images. I know I'm going to have a new Xamarin show coming out, I think later today, on using GlideX with the Android applications to make those a little bit better. But yeah, some good comments in the chat room. So yeah, feel free. We want to kick it over to Shane. How we feeling?
Let's do it. It's time.
It's
Feeling
time.
Pretty good.
Shane's ready.
All right, let's see.
So if you're just joining the chat, because we got a lot of people coming in, Shane is from the Xamarin.Forms team, worked on implementing a lot of the visual stuff. He's going to give us a walkthrough of all the brand new visual stuff available today. Today.
How's my resolution look?
Looks great.
Yeah.
All right.
Much better than mine.
planning. All right, yeah, so we'll jump into the visual discussion here. So one thing to sort of clarify, I think there has been sort of a mixing a sort of visual and material have kind of become a little synonymous when talking about the visual parts. So I wanted to just kind of show a quick code sample here, just kind of showing what visual itself is outside of the material space. So fundamentally, visual is really just a way to tell your controls, to tie your controls to a certain visual concept. And so it's just another way to swap in custom renderers, basically, renderers that people have written. And then it's a way that they can be swapped in on a much more top-down approach. So like the nice thing, so for example, here you'll see I've created a custom visual. So now the idea here is that this setting now top-down trickles through the entire hierarchy of controls. So if somebody wrote a new renderer against a custom visual for, say, label, it'll just use that renderer. So it's a way to allow people to, someone could write an entire suite, a new suite of controls, and then all you really have to do is say visual at your top level. This works for shell and collection view as well. And then it'll kind of swap all of those features in. So that's sort of the core idea of it. So we're really hoping that that's also going to create a lot of opportunity for people to create some very exciting renderers, visual renders themselves, or sort of, someone might create, say, like a Cupertino visual or something of that nature that'll trickle down, if that makes sense.
Hey, Shane, do I need to supply both the iOS and the Android in order to have a custom visual? What if I only did iOS?
No, so right now it'll just it'll fall back. So if you specify a custom visual, it'll first look for a renderer that you've registered against this visual, and then if it hasn't found it, it'll just default. It'll fall back to the default.
Okay. And so in that same vein, I don't have to implement every control. I can just do the controls that I'm interested in. If I want to leave label alone, I leave label alone. I don't touch it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So then that lets us, especially with material, anything that we've touched will get affected. So just as a really simple sample, here is a visual renderer that you could create this is an Android renderer. Here's our registration attribute that everyone I know loves to create. And then at this point, you just register what visual this applies for. So you can see there's just a new property on there, which takes an array of visuals. And then at that point, now this renderer is registered. So what it'll basically do when it's searching is it'll say, OK, look here, there's a button. And then it'll say, what visual does this button have? OK, it has a custom visual. All right, so is there a renderer associated with the button that is associated with custom visual? Yes. OK, let's use that. No. All right, just fall back to the default one. Yeah, so that's basically how they swap in. And then we've added kind of some some easy ways to tie the whole thing together. We created this idea kind of with a marker interface. So this is here what would go in your cross-platform library. And it just implements iVisual, which doesn't have anything. It's just indicating that it's just a marker interface saying that this is a type you use to mark an element visual. So, and we have the way the converter is set up and everything. It's able to sort of it's able to associate everything for you. So if you just type the word custom in here, what it does, it automatically scans through the assemblies looking for sort of different patterns. So it'll look for any visual that's named either custom or custom visual, and then that's what it'll use to swap in. So you don't need to register this with anything. Just the act of creating this to inherit from iVisual provides you with the ability to just specify this property here, visual equal custom, which will then tie into this renderer here.
So really, I want to get this straight because I think you just blew a few people's minds here, especially Dwayne in the chat room. So in general, what I'm hearing is that it is a custom renderer, but you're not referencing this custom visual renderer at all. It's just that it's not like my custom button. Like you don't have to put in my custom button. Like by doing this, you're just using button, right?
Right.
And then because you marked it with visual, or if you just put that on the button itself, it will know to look for all of those things. And here you've only done a button, so it's not going to do any of the label or stack layout or anything like that. But if you go down to the button, you could put it on the button or put it a high level, and then boom, you basically can create your own custom theme, really. So people can create custom controls, or they could go and, like, let's say you're Sync Fusion or Telerik, like, could you then create material versions of your controls so everyone could like be together in this? Is that a thing that could happen?
Yeah. So I mean, you could create a scroll view renderer that renders the scroll view, the labels, like the entire thing. So that's basically our plan for when we're going to do material shell. Is that at the shell level, you'll just say material, and then it'll go through the shell and have its own set of sort of material shell renderers that will render shell as a material design component from top down.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah. So it's neat.
I think, as I'm hearing you guys say that, and I think back on all of my projects, I hated creating all those custom names and different things, and then having to do XML and S to get into my custom, renderers to be able to put them on the page. I would much rather just say it's a button and just give me my button, right?
Yeah.
And I know there's other ways you could do that, but visual, I mean, I could imagine that everybody who starts a brand new project just immediately creates a visual, and then just uses this new API to do your custom renderer. And as long as the surface area of the particular control is what you want, right? I don't need extra properties on the button. What the button provides is what I want. I just want to have a custom renderer for it. Then I can do that, and it's a whole lot more efficient to manage all of my custom renderers in this way. So I think where your third-party control vendors such as Telerik, Sync Fusion, Infragistics, et cetera, may not need or want to use these. They have highly customized controls with their own properties and API surface, et cetera. And visual may not really be very useful for those scenarios. But for every project that I will do, I could absolutely imagine using visual just as my way of doing custom renders.
I want to get it correct, though, and because Shane and Dave, you kind of, I want to make sure I have this correct in my mind. So I would want to use visual or even a visual, which is still a custom renderer, but when I don't need any special properties. I just need everything that's based and more of a theming or changing something inherent. But if I wanted to then do a custom renderer and have my button, that would be because I want to maybe add a bunch of additional properties or additional bindings to it. So visual, you're not really going to be adding additional properties to it. You're just more theming compared to a full custom render with a custom name is something that allows me to add additional bindable properties to it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that actually segues into something I was going to bring up pretty well. So, I mean, you can always still the nice thing about XAML is you can still attribute things with, say, like attached properties and whatnot to, say, add customization points. So right now, that's the one, I'd say that's kind of the biggest thing lacking from our material implementation is that we haven't quite added the material styling parts of it yet. So I have a spec with some thoughts here as far as different ways that we could do this. So now with, say, the new ability to put properties inside, like the same namespace, you could pretty easily, if you add a third-party library, it would present, say, something of this nature. which would
Gotcha.
let you attach properties to it. So instead of being directly on controls, now you can do it through attached properties to then style. So that's our plan with Material, is to, via attached properties, tap into more aspects of material design. So like, for example, with material design, you have, I think, what is like 4 or 5 different buttons. Like there's a filled, outline, text, image.
Yep.
So we want to surface the ability for them to say, hey, we want this to be an outline button. And that. So this is kind of a spec I have together now, presenting sort of the different ways to do this.
I love that. That's so cool. I mean, that's almost how I was doing a lot on, like, I always have my image circle, right, which has been this circle of everything, right? And then yeah, it's like I always have to do that, and I only have a few additional properties. There's only a few properties like fill color, but it's like, it'd be cool if I could just be like image circle dot, like my style is circle, like, and then I could have an entire series of circles. Like everyone needs circles of everything, circle button, circle visual, all this stuff, which is, and then you could add attached properties, which would be kind of cool.
Right. So that's what we also want to bring to. So this is another spec, which will bring a lot of useful features. Material has a lot of really powerful shaping models. So we'd like to bring a lot of that to like your button, for example. So this would be sort of an example of, say, styling a button using Material. You could say, you could have the button, you could indicate it's a material visual, and then this would then specify some attached properties. This would specify now some attached properties that you could use to further style, that are just going to chat, that are going to communicate information to the material component.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah, so we're going to build this stuff into Material. Some of the stuff on the background is built. Right now, we're just figuring out the API. So here's issue 5005. If anybody kind of wants to comment on what they feel the best way is to surface these properties. There's kind of advantages to all as far as using sort of a general namespace or whatnot. So yeah.
Nice.
Love it.
Yeah, so that's kind of our plan. It's sort of like it's yeah. I mean, it's kind of you're still able to do the same things if you have like Shane-button, but except now it's using extended properties. So you get the same amount of extendability if you need it.
Gotcha. Can you apply multiple visuals to? You can only have one visual, right? You can't have multiple visuals.
Right, because it is just a render to a render.
Got it.
Matt was talking about this for a little bit, was about maybe adding a feature where people can customize the fallback mechanism a bit more. So, if somebody let's say somebody writes a visual on top of a material, like Dave's material, it would be nice if he could just, if you annotate the top element with Dave's material and Dave hasn't written a button, it'll just fall back to our material component opposed to falling back to like the default one.
Spicy. I like that. Yeah, that makes sense. And because, well, I guess the one thing, can you go to your code and kind of show how you could apply that? Like, because I think the most powerful thing is, I like that you can add it to the top there, but to me, what's powerful is adding it to the individual control, right? Because then you can have custom be at your top, and you might have Dave's custom WYSIWYG on that stack layout or on his label, and then that applies to the label, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, like, that's how Dave set up. I don't think he did, because his little Playgrounds app. So his little Playgrounds app, for example, just has a visual section of it that he's where he's marked certain components as being visual.
Nice.
Instead of having, to do the whole app.
Right.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So those are the ideas of visual. And then just to sort of demonstrate this started out with, we want to try to bring something to the platform that allows people to have a more cohesive style between the platforms. And like, what's the best way to do this? So, one way would have been to just completely write our own renders from the base up. But we felt that was a little bit that would have taken way too much time. So we went with Material, which is a pretty popular design pattern. And and so we pulled this into iOS and Android currently. iOS is using the iOS Material Components library straight from Google. And then Material on Android is using the Material components that are part of Support 28. And then when Android X rolls out, those are going to be an individual components that are updated as like an external NuGet. So so the individual teams that are working on those things are also updating those as they go as well. So yeah, Material will definitely get consistent updates, which is nice. It's not just like part of, say, iOS 12 updates or part of like support library updates. Yeah, which will be nice. So so this is kind of the breadth of controls that we've put together at this point. This is part of David's little things playground. Okay, yeah, the little things. I couldn't remember the order of the words. Little playthings, little things.
Sure. I should playthings. I'll rename it. That's a great one.
And it has the word "the" before it, so that's what took me a little bit to find it. But so you can see, and there was also a lot of just kind of neat control improvements. Unfortunately, I don't have a screenshot. Maybe Dave can pull it up. We have a visual gallery in our control gallery, which is really cool to compare. It's basically all the visual Material controls and then all the default ones just laid next to each other with no modifications. And you can see how much better the Material ones look. So, for example, most of the stuff in the little playgrounds hasn't really been styled at all. So a lot of this is very default what you're going to get, which is nice. So, like, for example, the Pavel did a lot of great work on this. The activity indicator here, you can see now you can set the background of the circle, whereas in like the default, you can't. It just sets the background of the control itself.
Isn't it the progress bar you can actually set height on now, which you couldn't previously?
Yeah, that was a big one too with iOS. That was kind of a funny. That one was a little bit annoying to get working, but the iOS. Well, it's funny.
Everything's not easy. What are you talking about?
Yeah, wait a second. I thought everything was a piece of cake.
Well, it was really funny because the non-Material progress bar in Android, you can change the height, but the Material progress bar in Android, you can't. So we had to kind of create our own custom drawables for it. So it was just kind of funny because when we went to Material, the problem switched. So the iOS implementation was able to change the height by default, but Android no longer could. So it was just like, come on, people. But
this is the world we live in, man.
Yeah, I know. I was so happy. But the like the UI, the Material progress bar on iOS is a totally rewritten control. So a lot of the Material components are based on the original native, like Material button inherits from UI button or app compat, whereas on iOS, the progress bar is a totally different control. It doesn't inherit from UI progress bar. So so the height just works out of the box, which is really cool. A lot of the ripple effects for the buttons themselves work really well with visual, as you can see. So so that's really cool. And it works on Samsung phones. For everyone commenting on the Samsung issue, I have an S9 here that I've tested on, and it works great for those. So that's kind of speaking to what James said. What's really cool switching things out is that even if you're not wanting to use Material, like the Material buttons themselves are really nice. You get consistent layout. The icon aspect is really nice because like right now with the default buttons on Android, you get the icons like way over here on the left. So you get really nice icon positioning. Matt did a lot of really great work on the button, and he did a lot of really good refactoring even on the default implementation. So like the button is great even just on its own as a stand-in replacement for your default buttons. I
like entry is my favorite, I think. Oh, maybe stepper. Oh, maybe slider. They're all great. No, entry is my favorite. I think entry is my favorite.
Yeah, entry's a really good one. It needs a little more customization so we can. This is another one we want to bring things like outline, because I know outline entries are really popular for things like logins.
Yep.
So we have the mechanisms for that built into the native. Now we're just kind of figuring out how to surface that cross-platform. But yeah, we want to be able to let people customize, say, like the underline. But yeah. So like you can see, the entry's really neat.
I can officially delete my custom renderer on iOS for underline entry. It was always a pain in the butt, and I hated it. And then this one's just so much better because you get the little place marker or placeholder and everything like that.
Yeah, it's really nice. So we're with the next sort of permutation of entry, we're really gonna expose a lot of the other features, because the material entry has a lot of stuff. So like you can set a description under the bottom left, you can set an error, a lot of those things. So we really want to surface all of the different labeling mechanisms and styles that you can do. Yeah, and be able to increase the height. So editor is essentially the same base control as entry, except it's multi-line. Yeah, the concept material itself, yeah, so you can see it grows. The material definition for an editor is that it auto sizes, so that's just kind of how it works by default.
Nice.
Yeah, so that one's nice. And then Matt did a lot of good work on our stepper control.
Oh yeah, much better.
Yeah, which renders kind of interestingly on this computer. You just see plus and minuses. But yeah, basically it's this is kind of cool where you're seeing what the different styles can achieve. So what this is using here is it's using the outline style of a material button. And then since we'd already done all the work to make the buttons the same on both platforms, we just reused that behavior to make 2 outline buttons. So the stepper implementation on iOS, for example, no longer just uses UI stepper. It just uses our own custom one that uses outline buttons. That way the 2 can look the same, and you get like these cool ripple effects when you click on it. Yeah, it's really neat. So, and we replaced the icons for the plus and minus, so they're bolder and more exciting. Yeah, you can check those out. So they're actually some specifically different type of Unicode plus and minus. They're not the same one as the plus and minus on your keyboard, which was fun. So yeah, even if you go in the code, Matt has a fun comment in there saying, these look like plus and minuses, but they aren't, so do not replace them. Because they're very special characters. So
Very special.
yeah, but we have the sliders here, which you can customize the colors, which look really nice. And then the pickers, since our picker controls are essentially just reusing, they're just reusing entries. So we haven't materialized, say, the pop-ups yet. We have a PR that Matt worked on for alert dialogues that will probably surface as more of a material pop-up that we can reuse. But yeah, so these are just giving a consistent look to the entry fields.
That's nice.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I have a new monitor that was supposed to get here yesterday, but all I have is this monitor, which doesn't render colors super well. So
Looks okay here.
Oh, does it? Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, I wasn't sure, because on my screen it's just completely white.
Oh, no.
Oh,
We
no,
see
you can see
contrast.
it. Yeah, you can see
Okay.
contrast.
Okay, good. I can't see any contrast.
Clifford asks about the sliders. Can they be made vertical, or are they only horizontal? Is that a thing? I know it is a thing, but I don't know.
I mean, there isn't necessarily a property, but you can use the animation, like translation features to rotate it.
You could rotate it. Yeah, you could do rotate 90 degrees. Boom.
Yeah.
Just transform it.
Yeah, you could transform it. So I would have to look if there's something like a native property to do that, but my guess is that even natively, they probably just rotate the views to achieve that.
When you rotate a view, does the height and width on the rotation then match? Like, so if I rotate that 90 degrees, like let's say one of those, the default, would the default disabled underneath it then move down? Like, is it spatially aware of its parents?
I can't say for sure. I
We
would
gotta
need
try
to
it out. We gotta try it
Yeah,
out.
I would have to try that one out.
There you go, Clifford. Try it out. Let us know. Report back or send a pull request.
Yeah, I don't quite remember how the heights in those update. Yeah, so I think I updated through all of these. There's a basic card which just uses the material card. So like, yeah, it just uses a material card view to get. And this is the card view is another one where we really want to expose properties like elevation and shadow and more of your corner attributes. Because there's a lot of really good shaping mechanisms in material.
Yeah, I love it. Jeffrey's saying it gets rid of a lot of the custom renderer shenanigans for styling that developers were having to go through. So I'm already excited.
Yeah, and then we're really excited for the next permutation of surfacing all the material properties themselves, so that there's even less need for any sort of custom renderers. But yeah, I mean, on the subject of custom renderers, like you can, if you want to extend the material renderers, you can. So, kind of based on this sample here, if you just go and if you just create, all the material renderers you can, let's see if it's in here. Yeah, it's in here somewhere. But there's the material renderers are all part of the public space. So let's see if oh, wait, cool. That is the name. Yeah. So if you wanted to kind of pull in your own, let's see if I remember all of these names. Yeah. So yeah, you could do something of this nature to now this renderer here is going to be the one that gets pulled in for button when you mark it with material.
Oh, spicy. So you could literally spice it up a little bit if you wanted to expose some of those other properties that aren't exposed yet, basically, here.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, you could do that here. And then all of the places we could, so entry's the only one that isn't, but all of the Android renderers are done in the style of fast renderers.
Cool.
Yeah, so the entry is the only one that still inherits, that's wrapped in a view group. But that and stepper, because stepper is just a composite control. But yeah, like the activity indicators, the progress indicators, the card view, the button, those are all, the slider, they're all fast renderers. So I know right now fast renderers is under experimental, but these are all using the fast renderer concept. So yeah, so with all of
Take 2 seconds and tell everybody what a fast renderer is.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea, yeah.
Okay. So the idea with the fast renderer was eliminating a level of nesting in Android. So originally, when all the Android renderers were put together, there was a base class which implemented view group. So essentially, there was an added layer of view hierarchy for every single control in Android, which affects performance, because now you're having sort of 2 layers of layouts occurring and everything like that. So the fast renderers eliminated that middle hierarchy so that it's minimizing the number of views that are on your screen.
Gotcha.
And how do I use fast renderers?
Say again?
How do I opt into using a fast renderer?
Oh, let's see. So the fast renderers are part of experimental. So that goes back to the flags that I don't know does this one have flags? Yeah, I haven't removed them yet on here. But it's the fast renderers it's the same thing as this set flags attribute. And if I remember, I don't quite remember with the text for it. I think that was it. Okay. Yeah, and then that'll opt in. Now all your default controls will use fast renderers instead.
Well, so to just be very clear, it's not all controls. So there's the 3 primary ones: label, image, and button, I believe, are the ones that are fast. And the other controls have not yet been ported over to fast renderers, except for the ones that you've just mentioned that are part of material visual, that those do implement fast.
Now, if I'm using visual, do I still need to opt in for the fast render if everything in my app is visual, or is it just going to get the speed boost automatically?
There's not. I'm trying to think. So the only advantage you'd get right now is that the
label.
Label, yeah, label and image renderer,
Okay.
because we don't have a material label or a material image yet. So those are the kind of two of the next ones in the works. So that we can, one, make them fast renderers, and then two, we can just ensure, because the big thing about material is that it's very opinionated. So a lot of times with the default controls, with a lot of the default controls, we don't really take an opinion on the way it's going to look at first. It just looks it looks how it looks natively when you just put it there. And then it's kind of up to you to style. Whereas with material has a lot of theming and things like that. So we basically just said, okay, we're going to default everything to a dark material theme, and that's the default color everything's going to get. So that way, when you render, say, a button or an entry or anything like that, your default is always going to be the same colors. It's not gonna. It even sort of applies itself over, say, styles that you would have in your Android style sheets, even, just so it can, because we want it to be. We don't want people to have to muck around with things inside the native platforms much. So yeah, so it takes a super opinionated perspective on the way things are going to color and whatnot. So we want to bring that as well to, say, like labels and images, just to ensure, because by saying material, you're saying, okay, you're giving us the power to force certain design principles.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah, for certain design principles up front. So that's very much, yeah. So that's that. With being able to do that, we can ensure that everything's going to lay out well, and you're not going to have certain areas that are odd. So, and then the other one that's in the pipeline as well is the switch. So we need to do a little bit of work on the switch. They don't actually provide any material switch for iOS. There was some work being done on it at one point, and then I think they gave up. And if you look at the material design spec, like materialdesign.io, they even say, like, the iOS one's good enough. We're not going to make a new one.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. So
because we hear designers say that all the time, right? Oh, it's good enough.
Yeah, that's basically what the material spec says, is that, they're like, for switches, just use the native ones because they're good enough.
It's interesting because I wonder if someone at Google is like, man, I kind of like their switches a little bit. Like the iOS switch seems to be like the de facto that you see. I like the Android switch personally. I think it's nice. I think it's simple. But the touch area of the iOS switch is larger, I think, than the material switch that they have in AppCompat itself. Because it really was the toggle, right? If you go back on Android, there were switches and toggles, and you had the on-off, and then it switched to no text, and it has a very long lineage. If you go back 7 years, like I do, 10 years of Android development, of the controversy of switches and toggles and checkboxes and material and all, and hollow and all the things, right? So that's funny. Man, that's crazy.
Hollow.
I'm gonna create a hollow a visual.
No, you're not.
Bring it
No,
back,
you're not.
hollow, baby. Let's do it. Yeah.
You do what you want, man. You've got
All
the
right.
community toolkit. You can go add it over there.
No, I won't bring hollow back. No one needs that in their lives.
Yeah, so the switch one's an interesting one. At a first implementation, we'll probably just make sure it colors and that the layout area is the same, just so it's not taking up more space. But yeah, if we want to get it to look like Android, we'll have to basically do what you've done for Checkbox, something of that nature.
Yeah. Checkbox, I think, is a good one. I enjoyed that because it's circular on iOS, which I think adheres to what they do, which is interesting. So even though they don't do anything, but they kind of
They don't do anything. Yes.
They have one. They have one, but they don't have one.
There's a couple instances like that where they do things in their own apps, but they don't surface it through UIKit.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. The Mac one has a checkbox, but
It does, yeah. Which is actually a button. It's a style of button. Yeah.
yeah, so we'll have to create a material checkbox now after that other PR.
That's true.
Where they're both square, I guess.
I guess, yeah.
Or just make up our own. So, yeah, so those are kind of the highlights of it. Just kind of some real quick notes about if you want to use visual in your own app. So Visual is its own NuGet package, Xamarin.Forms.Visual.Material. So that contains all of the material renderers. When we first put this together, we just had it as part of Xamarin.Forms, but then in order for it to work, it was by default installing the iOS materials components library, and we didn't want to kind of put that on as a default package coming down for people installing, say, like New 3.6 and whatnot. So for especially people who don't care about material, they'd be like, why is it this material components thing? Yeah, it would get linked out and everything, but either way. Yeah, so the basics of it are you install the Forms Visual Material package, and then you set this was me testing some stuff, but yeah, and then you init it here, which the main thing that the init call does is it's a way, it makes sure that the material DLL doesn't get linked out.
Gotcha.
Because, yeah, since renderers and everything are done through reflection, if you don't reference a DLL directly from your head project, the iOS compiler will basically just remove the DLL. So that's really what this does here. There's a similar call on the Android side that that I have there for. In a lot of cases, it's sort of for future-proofing, because Android currently loads all your DLLs by default. So you don't technically need this, but there might be a point when you do need it. So I would just put it there anyway.
Yeah, you might have like your advanced linker on, like full link everything under the sun. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there might be scenarios where you're definitely going to need that. So I would say put that there for those cases. And then at first, too, Android, we did have all the renderers as part of the Xamarin.Forms library, since it is part of Support 28. But with Android X, it's going to be its own package. So for now, we moved it to its own NuGet, because at some point, once we get everything over to Android X, there's going to appear like a google.materials.something NuGet package that starts to get updated independently of the support libraries.
Cool.
Yeah, and then let's see, just some other notes about it. It only works at API 28, so you have to make sure your target framework is 28, because all the material components for Android are only built into the Support 28 libraries. But there's a handy little targets file that comes along with Xamarin.Forms.Visual Material that will fail your build if your target framework is too low.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. That's great.
Yeah.
Now I want to remind people that this is the compile target. This is not your min-max version. People get confused by those. We have great docs on that. People get confused all the time. That is in your manifest. This is just compiling and what version of the NuGets to use. In the Android manifest, that is where the min and max are. So you are still going down to 21. You're going to get back compat there, but don't be confused by that. So.
Yeah. So it's just the compile using. And then you get the best results with material for API 21 and up. So that is where you're sort of now talking about min devices. That's the main support level that they've talked about for material. So it's still. I've tested it on API 19, and from my tests, most things work pretty well. There's currently an issue out with the activity indicators that needs to be resolved with API 19. So your mileage may vary on API 19. Officially supported for material is API 21 and up devices.
That's not bad. I'm looking at the Android dashboard right now, and that's about 90% of all Android devices that are reaching Google Play. Worldwide. So for 21 plus, by the way, if you do 19 plus, that's going to be 98.4% of all devices. I think 90. Yeah, it's a lot of devices, basically 90.
That's a lot.
Yeah, 97% or something like that. Yeah. I like 21 plus. I mean, that's the introduction and lollipop of a lot of these newer concepts of material design, anyways. So I guess Marshmallow maybe.
So here's a demo of a nice, friendly. Everyone loves friendly error messages.
Yeah, it tells you exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah. Now, if you could double click on that and it would do it for you, I think the IDE team needs to do that. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
That's actually really nice.
Yeah, so it's a nice little error. Otherwise, you would just get a bunch of like confusing theme resource not found errors, which are confusing. So
Very
cool.
Yeah, so this is nice. And that was this target is actually something we built into the forms library itself as well. So right now, Forms 3.6 requires you to target 8.1 or above for your compile using.
Mm-hmm.
So with Xamarin.Forms 3.6, if you have this set to anything lower than 8.1, you'll get an error that Xamarin.Forms requires 8.1 and up.
Yeah, that's good. And also at the same time, it also helps with the support libraries. And I'll probably have a blog post going up, but Google is about to change all of their requirements for the target framework too in the next few months, just like they did last year. So you want to be on this latest, building against the latest and targeting the latest anyways if you're in the App Store. So
always.
Yeah, there's been a pretty big push to fix a lot of the error messages. So especially Dev 16 has a lot of really helpful error messages. Anybody who's ran into, say, like multi-dex issues, if you hit multi-dex issues in Dev 16, it now actually tells you instead of just saying like Java 2 error.
Yeah, if people don't know what Dev 16 is, that's Visual Studio 2019.
Oh, sorry.
That's just our internal, that's what we call it. I mean,
Visual Studio 2019. So, which is going great. I do all my development on 2019, and it's awesome. So
same.
Quick plug.
Quick plug. Yes. Anything else you want to show? I know we're a little bit over time now, but I don't know if there was anything else.
No, I think I mean, David, unless there's anything you think I missed, I guess I'd say people go to the Visual Challenge, play around with that. Yeah, and just really curious to hear how. I want to know all your failures with Visual and where it's falling short, and what you really like about it. So yeah, just let me know.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, we'll do a blog post next week. We'll line it up, seeing that I just announced that we're giving away sticker packs and
It just happened.
Well, I magically came into a few 100 monkeys and a few hundred Xamarin t-shirts, and we just ordered a few thousand stickers. So I'm pretty excited about those landing at my house any day to add onto my collection. But anyways, thanks, Shane, for coming on. This was an amazing deep dive.
Awesome. Yeah.
Stuff I didn't even know about in general. We need to put together a PowerPoint deck on this craziness. And then we do have a blog post going on. We'll link to this video because you can find this video on YouTube as well. I want to really quickly point out, I'll go to my machine really quick over here. I'll pip it. There we go. And when there's us live. Let's close that. When you go to either the .NET Foundation YouTube or you come over here to the Twitch page of Visual Studio, you can go to events and you can see all of the upcoming events, including the Visual Studio 2019 launch on April 2nd. Now next week, I believe we're going to be moving this one around, the language and runtime, because there's going to be an all-day building apps with .NET marathon. It's going to be like a 25-hour marathon or something crazy that Fritz and a bunch of people are doing on there. So you'll see that on here. I think this might move to the Tuesday, but you can actually come in, and if you tap on one of these events, it's in this series. We got brand new logos and things like that too, that we have some designers work on some new things, some new artwork, which is cool. If you come in here to the specific one, you set a reminder. This will set it for everything in the series. So you get notifications on Twitch there. And if you go to the .NET Foundation YouTube, that is going to, there's us doing stuff right now. But if you come down over here, you'll see the upcoming streams on the .NET Foundation. So make sure you subscribe to the Visual Studio Twitch or to the .NET Foundation YouTube, and you'll get notifications of when all of this stuff is coming live. And then you can see all the past .NET Community Stand-Ups right here. But I think that's all that I have in general. Anything else from you guys?
No. I think I will make a quick comment here at the end, because there's been several comments in the chats about, hey, what are you guys doing about hot reload? And there's really, we can't talk about anything at this time. There's no product plans that we can share. I think that anybody that has paid attention to the progress of things that we've done over the past with Live Player and Live Reload and the experiments there, and what we're doing now with Previewer, I think that you can see the trend and where things are heading. So stay posted, and when things start to shape up and we have plans to share, we will absolutely be sharing them. But I guess take heart and confidence in knowing that that we love hearing from you about these things, and as soon as we can share something and shout about it, we absolutely will, because I use LiveXAML myself. I use Gorilla Player. These things are awesome productivity tools, and there's a whole breadth and depth of things that can be done in that space. If you've ever used Fabulous and F#, it's baked into that product. So yeah. I think I'll stop talking now, but I don't want people to lose heart. I don't want you thinking that we don't understand, that we don't know. You know.
We're always listening. We're talking to our developers and to our customers every single day, every single PM, and engineering too. So we're always here. We're here for you.
Yes.
Thanks everyone for joining the .NET Community Stand-Up. Like I said, make sure you subscribe on Twitch and on YouTube. And of course, if you want more content, check back every single Tuesday and Thursday for more awesome .NET stuff. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone in the chat for being awesome. I really, really appreciate it. And thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in about a month. Bye.